Hey guys, my name is Katie Killen, and I will be talking about gender in sports, a topic explored in Chapter 10 of Jay Coaxley's Sport and Society Issues and Controversies. This chapter takes a deep look at how gender shapes opportunities, expectations, and power structures in the world of athletics. As we've seen over the past few decades, progress has been made in increasing women's participation in sports, but equality is still far from being achieved. I chose this topic because it's not just about fairness and competition, it's about social change, identity, and representation. Sports have always reflected broader cultural values, and the fight for gender equity in sport mirrors the fight for equality in society. Coaxley begins this chapter by reminding us that gender is a social construct, not just a biological category. Society assigns meanings and expectations to what it meant to be masculine or feminine, and these expectations spill into how sports are organized and valued. For much of modern sport history, masculinity has been linked to power, strength, and competitiveness, traits often celebrated in male athletes. Meanwhile, femininity has been traditionally associated with grace and appearance, which has led to women's sports being viewed as less intense or less important. One of Coaxley's key points is that sports have long been a site for reproducing gender ideology. For instance, when women demonstrate physical strength or aggression, they often face social pushback or are labeled as unfeminine. On the other hand, male athletes who don't display toughness are sometimes ridiculed or dismissed. This shows how deeply sports is connected to maintaining gender norms. A major turning point came with Title IX in 1972, a federal law that prohibited sex-based discrimination in educational programs, including athletics. Title IX opened doors for millions of girls and women to participate in sports. Participation numbers skyrocketed, and we started to see women's teams gain visibility and institutional support. However, as Coakley points out, equality in numbers doesn't necessarily mean equality in power. Women's sports still receive less media coverage, fewer sponsorships, and smaller budgets. Even today, ESPN's main channel devotes less than 10% of their coverage to women's sports. Beyond that, leadership positions remain dominated by men. In the NCAA, the majority of athletic directors and head coaches of women's teams are still male. And this raises the question, is progress real if power remains unequal? Coaxley does a great job outlining the structural and cultural barriers that keep sport unequal. But one critique I have is that the text sometimes focuses more on institutions than on individual experiences. There's less emphasis on how athletes themselves navigate these pressures, especially those who don't fit traditional gender roles, such as non-binary or transgender athletes. Another area that deserves more discussion is the media's role. The way female athletes are represented often reinforces stereotypes. They're praised for their looks, motherhood, or humility more than on their skill and competitiveness. Media narratives can either challenge or reinforce gender norms, and that's something I think needs stronger attention. I also think it's important to recognize the intersectionality of gender, race, and class in sports. For example, Black athletes often face both racialized and gendered barriers that differ from their white counterparts. Addressing gender equity means acknowledging those overlapping systems of inequity. To wrap up, gender and sport are deeply intertwined. Progress through policies like Title IX have been significant, but equality isn't just about access. It's about representation, respect, and recognition. As future professionals and fans, We all have a role in challenging outdated ideas about who belongs in sport. The goal isn't just to have more women or non-binary athletes. It is to ensure that everyone's athletic ability and identity are valued equally. Thanks for listening, and I hope you have a deeper understanding of the ongoing challenges and opportunities in achieving equity in sport.